Thing is, Gary, we actually don't have a choice in the matter.
Mm.
Free will.
Okay.
Man, we have, you and I have had a couple of different conversations about this. Some long kind of
Yeah.
wheeling, rambling, all just privately, all just off camera. We're here today and we're doing some stuff in the studio and we wanted to record some stuff. And you said, let's come up with a few topics, and we talked about a few, and I couldn't help myself. I had to write this one down.
Okay.
I couldn't have done otherwise.
All right.
Right. And I wanna see where you're at on this.
Okay.
Now, and just kind of, I don't know, just kind of ramble a little bit, ourselves, and just see what we talk about. The last time we had this conversation about free will, I think we did it for about 4 hours straight.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think we'll go that long today.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, where do you sit now? Have you changed your opinion? Have you looked into anything lately that like blew your mind? I mean, what do you think, Gary? Do we have free will? Do we have the ability to choose stuff, or are we just dominoes in a chain?
So I guess first of all, I know this is a subject that some people are really passionate about, and the whole free will versus determinism topic is a conversation where people get passionate about it. I can't say that I have thoroughly explored it. Now, I say that I was in the car with you for 4 hours nonstop and had a conversation, and if I remember, you and I stopped at a Buc-ee's, and this conversation continued from the truck through the parking lot, all the way through the Buc-ee's, and then again out into the. I remember you stopped in the middle of Buc-ee's, and there was somebody had spilled something on the floor, so they had one of those wet floor signs, and you stopped in the middle of Buc-ee's. There's probably 200 people in this place. It's a madhouse, and you and I are having this free will determinism talk going through the Buc-ee's, and you pointed at the wet floor thing, and you said, "Okay, Gary. You think you've got free will? Just choose to believe that that's a soccer ball. You can't do it, can you?" I said, "Well, no, I can't." And then we walked outside, and you said, "Okay, Gary." And it was a bright, sunshining day, beautiful day. And you said, "Okay, Gary, choose to believe that it's storming right now. Choose to believe that there's a tornado." I was like, "I know, I can't." He goes, and then you said, "See, that's what I'm saying." I know people get passionate about this. I can't say I've explored it a whole lot since then. And I think you introduced a term to me that was kind of a middle ground.
Yeah.
Not squarely in the free will camp, not squarely in the determinist camp, but kind of in the middle. And I think you referred to me as a compatibilist.
Yeah.
If I'm getting that right.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I'm at. I can't choose to believe that this piece of equipment here is a soccer ball. I can't just make myself believe that. And I get that, right? But I do feel like I can choose when we leave here whether or not we're going to go back to my house and have the best potato soup that you've ever had, which we will.
We'll update you on that later.
Or not, right? I
Right.
mean, we could just stop for sushi, or whatever.
Sure.
So, and I do feel strongly that I could make that decision. And so, now how that plays into the whole debate, I'm not really sure. I'm sure that, we both know people that spend a lot of time in this area.
Oh, yeah.
Some of those people are going to be joining us for on March 31st.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll find out then.
Right. You might switch your view.
You never know.
Right, live.
You never know. Yeah.
I would say that, it was always determined to happen if you do. Is it something that, do you think this conversation about whether or not free will exists, or whether, everything's just determined, or, maybe like things are determined, but we have a little bit of choice in there. Is that something that you feel like really matters for how you live your life? Like, if tomorrow there was some way, I don't know how this happens, but there was some way, all the headlines all around the world say we have 100% figured it out. There is free will. Like, do you feel as if much about your beliefs much about the way that you interact in the world? Do you feel like much of that changes?
I don't think so. I mean, look, so I had never even entertained this question,
Mm,
5 years ago,
sure.
right? And, I'm getting ready to be 50, so I went 45 years w without ever
Yeah, doing
considering.
just fine.
I was just fine, right? And, I was a good guy. I've treated people, well, um, so I've done okay, and so if this question was never settled for
Mm,
me, I feel like I would be fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
feel like most people for sure, this is not something that really, really comes up.
mhm,
And honestly, like I I I don't find a bunch of people doing a lot of this type of thought casually. A lot more of the do we have a soul? Is there an afterlife? Is there a
mhm,
God? Like what's really going on with the universe type of stuff.
yeah,
I don't tend to find many people um, that really want to even delve into this space. And I guess part of it for me is because, yeah, I don't think anything really changes that much about how I interact with the world,
right,
whether there is, free will or not. Now I'm squarely in the determined camp, I'm very much in that space. And I understand why people will say, gosh, Elliot, if we don't have the ability to decide things, that really changes a lot about how we, you know, interact with society.
mm,
Like punishment seems a bit weird in that sense,
mhm,
because it's kind of like, well, you know, Gary didn't Gary couldn't have done anything different but punch me in the face. It's like I can't really hold him as responsible, right?
mm,
I think a lot of those questions are answered. And so that's why I think it doesn't really matter whether you have free will or not, because all of the things that we meaningfully want that we get with this ability to choose, I think is still there. So for instance, somebody will say, well, gosh, Elliot, you can't put a murderer in jail, because they couldn't have done otherwise. And it's like, well, yeah, we absolutely can still put him in jail. Why does that? They're
mm,
doing something that is currently causing harm. You can stop people from doing that, even if you rolled back the clock and they couldn't have picked
mm,
any other thing, right? Just because a fire will, by the laws of physics, just burn down this whole fucking neighborhood doesn't mean we have to sit there and watch it, right?
mhm,
Like, sure, there's a chain of dominoes, but it doesn't mean that we don't have the ability to stop those dominoes, right?
mhm,
Plus, all of us are determined to just engage with the world around us as we are determined to. So that's also a reason why we punish people for the bad actions that they do, right?
mhm,
Like I am just programmed through my biology and through experience and so forth, just the same as everybody else is. And so when I see somebody doing particular bad actions, I also, against my will, say, "Oh my gosh, stop that." We have to put out this fire, right?
I think you said something there that, every once in a while in these conversations, something will come up and like,
Oh yeah.
hang on, I'm stuck on that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, please.
Bit of a speed bump right
Yeah, yeah,
there.
let's do it.
You said that, you have these experiences,
Mhm,
just like everybody else.
mhm.
And as soon as you said that, I went, hang on a second. I think you've got these set of experiences specifically unique to yourself. In fact,
Okay.
unlike anyone else, right? You and I didn't experience the exact same things as young kids,
Sure.
right? So, in fact, no one experienced exactly the things that you did.
Yeah,
So it's actually unique to you.
yeah,
And
and
so in that situation that you described where you would, whether you liked it or not, you would respond in a certain way.
mhm.
Someone else now this kind of goes to your point. Someone else with a different set of
Right, because of their specific
Sure.
yes, and I'm with you there. And I think really what I was getting at was there are similarities in the types of behaviors and the types of interactions with other creatures and the types of just experience in life, right? That are similar enough that kind of guide people in general, right? We've had enough time of hanging out with each other, right? In close quarters that we've realized like going to the bathroom right in the same place where we're sleeping is a bad idea, you know? Like that was just something we figured out, you know? And so all of us just have this kind of, reaction to these types of moments, right? If an adult wets the bed, right, we all just kind of are like, whoa, because in part we're formed by all of these similar experiences. You're right though. What happened to you when you were a 7-year-old versus what happened to me when I was a 7-year-old. Yes. The specific things are what ultimately I think give us that identity for ourselves, right? And make us act in a certain way, in a certain situation. But I think a lot of that is, I think a lot of that is similar enough that we really could, with more information about any given situation, we really could have a decent understanding and say like, well, Gary's going to do one of these 5 things. And the likelihood that it's going to be A is 27%, and the likelihood that it's going to be B or C is X%, and so on and so forth. I really do think just the same as if you take a marble and you run it down a Hot Wheels track, right? And you calculate the speed and you calculate the angle and all of this stuff, you can have a pretty damn good understanding of where that marble's going to land,
So do you feel like we're marbles on Hot Wheels tracks?
I mean, it doesn't sound as cool when you say it like that.
Damn it.
I know. Well, I don't know if you've ever seen Marble League racing and stuff, but it is so awesome. It is so cool. So maybe we are marbles on tracks because actually it's kind of interesting.
All right, so I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've asked you this before, but so we're always learning things. We're always working on learning new things, right? Not necessarily you and I, but different fields. There's always somebody studying something, and experiments taking place. So our knowledge is ever increasing. And so when it comes to the conversation of free will versus determinism, and also a lot of things that for a long time people have thought were, say, binary,
Sure.
right? It's either this or this, right? You and I know when somebody says, it's either male or female. We're like, there's more in there than that, even if someone said, well, it's either day or night. No, it's actually never really either anywhere.
Right.
I mean, it's always kind of a gradient. Do you think in this free will versus that, do you feel like it's been explored fully, or that there's still some to learn, and that we may come to say, have more options in there?
I think that's a really interesting question. And I think, the part of the issue is this discussion has been oftentimes framed as free will versus determined, as being the dichotomy, as being the A and not A. And that's not true. It really is free will or not free will, whatever not free will means, right? Or it's determined and not determined. And that's really where the conversation it needs to be had, right? Because I agree, when we look at it from this perspective of complete freedom and the ability to make all these decisions and so forth, versus we're just dominoes in a chain that are, you know, we just happen to do whatever the heck, you know, the world forces upon us, basically. It feels like there is a middle ground in between it. And there is in that space, because those are not actually true opposites of each other. The question that I think is more interesting is whether or not things are determined. And answering the question, no, that things are not determined, does not get us to free will, though, right? Answering the question that things are determined, though, also does not get us to free will. And that's in part why I don't think we have free will, is because I focused on that true dichotomy. If things are determined, well, then we're in the camp of determinism, and we don't need to have much more discussion about free will, right? We're just asking how things are determined. And that's free will. That's that vehicle, right? But they're still determined. They still have some causal chain that gets us to this place, right? If, though, they really are not, if they really are just completely random, and there is absolutely no chain of events that gets us to this conclusion, I mean, a couple of things are really odd there, in my opinion. One, that feels to be outside of everything else. Feels like everything else operates on that system except for our decisions for some reason, which feels a little weird to me. Not saying that that can't be the case, just feels a bit special pleading, right?
Okay.
But then the other side of it is, if things are just completely 100% always random, it makes it very difficult for me to figure out how we would understand anything. And that's not me saying that because I can't think of a way, it can't be like that.
Right.
It's just to say it almost feels like we're butting up to that place again of, how do you push back on logic without using logic?
Yeah.
If there's not some kind of format, if there's not some kind of understandable process, right? Then I really, and I need some help on this. I would love for somebody to help me. I don't understand how, without that basic structure, you would ever understand anything. It just feels to me like the entire game falls away at that point. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, if we don't have logic, then we can't, you know, do anything. And it's like, okay, but that's logical. And so it seems like we kind of just have to have it. We kind of just have to have logic as a foundation, and then we can move on from there, right? Just kind of like, it seems like we have to kind of have a causal chain. Otherwise, like, we can't ever move on.
Right.
And again,
it feels like a bit of a riddle wrapped in an enigma.
It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. And
I think what I hear you saying is, I'm right.
You know, if you're hearing that, Gary, I'm just going to say that, you know, you couldn't have done otherwise. There was nothing else. I don't know if we solved any problems on it, but, you know, at least, hopefully there's a couple of people that will reach out to us and, you know, find something.
Throw their hat in the ring?
I mean, find something interesting to send me to make me think more about this. I love this conversation.
I do too.
And you won't talk with me about it as much. And so I guess that's really what this is. This is just a cry for help.
Now. Don't.
Somebody out there, talk with me about free will, because Gary won't do it anymore.
I don't think that's fair. I don't think you've asked me, because I will. I will spend some time with you there. Yeah. Do we have anybody joining us on the 31st who's like
really big into?
Yeah, they spend a lot of time in this, or
I don't
have
know.
really dissected it.
I don't know, maybe.
Okay.
I know that Justin from the Deconstruction Zone is
Mhm.
going to be hanging out with us.
Okay.
And he is constantly out there talking with believers of all kinds of different, beliefs. And he is always really pushing back and bringing some good arguments. So
Okay.
I don't know how much he's dealt with free will and determinism, but we will ask him live because we don't have a choice otherwise. I'm sticking with it, man.
Do it, man. Do it. Look, several things that you have said in the course of having these conversations, like, "Hey, Gary, choose to believe that that's a soccer ball right now." Some of those things really stick with me, and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Man, that really makes a lot of sense," you
Yeah.
know? And then I balance that with, "Yeah, but when I leave here, like, I could, choose what I want to have for dinner tonight," or, um and there's a lot of times as we're bumping around in this world that we do make decisions about how we're going to behave, and
Sure.
are you going to own up to that, are you going to
Sure.
tell the truth, are you going to, if no one would know unless you said something that you did that thing, are
Okay.
you going to or
I
not?
told you I did not eat that ice cream, dude. Okay. I swear that I didn't. I don't know. This is weird. Did you just plan this as like a weird way? I'm going to get you on camera, Elliott, and I'm going to get you to admit I didn't do it.
You have been out of town for a week, and so if you notice extra cameras around the house, hey, we can find out. So